In the world of sports legends, few stories rival the dramatic highs and catastrophic lows of Mike Tyson, a man who redefined what it meant to be both a champion and a cautionary tale. Once hailed as the most feared heavyweight boxer on the planet, Tyson didn't just dominate in the ring, he conquered pop culture with a force unmatched by most athletes. But behind the thunderous knockouts and the roaring crowds was a man living faster than any of his punches could fly. He wasn't just spending money, he was torching through fortunes with reckless abandon, amassing over 100 luxury vehicles, owning multiple mansions dripping in gold, throwing six-figure parties, and walking tigers through gated estates like they were lapdogs. At his peak, he earned over $400 million, an amount that would baffle even seasoned tycoons, only to lose it all and declare bankruptcy while staring down $23 million in debt. But Tyson's story didn't end there. Instead of fading into obscurity like so many before him, he clawed his way back into the spotlight. Not with his fists, but with a sharp sense of branding, launching a cannabis empire known as Tyson 2.0, and building a digital empire across YouTube and Instagram that still generates millions. His life has been a whirlwind of violence, extravagance, regret, and redemption, a modern-day parable told in pay-per-view fights and luxury purchases. And while most remember him for the chaos, what's perhaps most shocking is just how brilliantly he's managed to rise once again. From million-dollar sports cars to gold-plated bathrooms, from the darkest scandals to public rebirth, Mike Tyson's life isn't just a story. It's an empire of extremes. But how exactly did it all unravel, and what did he do to rebuild? The answer lies in the wild chapters that followed his first rise to the top. Before Mike Tyson became a name that echoed through stadiums and pay-per-view broadcasts, he was just another kid lost in the violent underbelly of Brooklyn, New York, born in 1966 into a world that offered little more than crime, poverty, and pain. Abandoned by his father and left reeling after the death of his mother at just 16 years old, Tyson was a ticking time bomb, arrested dozens of times for petty crimes before he even turned a teenager. His future seemed destined for a jail cell. But everything changed when he was placed under the mentorship of the legendary boxing trainer Cus D'Amato. D'Amato saw in young Mike what no one else had dared to: raw, unmatched potential fueled by deep emotional rage. He took Tyson into his home, becoming not just a coach, but a father figure, guiding him with military discipline and psychological conditioning that channeled his aggression into devastating precision in the ring. Under D'Amato's watchful eye, Tyson transformed from an aimless street kid into a disciplined warrior, winning amateur tournaments with frightening ease. His power, speed, and fearlessness became his trademark, earning him the nickname Kid Dynamite. By the time he turned professional, it was clear the boxing world had never seen anything quite like him. At just 20 years old, Tyson made history by becoming the youngest heavyweight champion of all time, knocking out Trevor Berbick in brutal fashion and igniting a reign of terror in the sport. Yet even as his fists brought him fame and fortune, the shadows of his past never truly disappeared. The very rage that made him unstoppable in the ring was rooted in childhood trauma and abandonment. Still, for a fleeting moment, Tyson was the embodiment of redemption, the poster boy for how even the most broken beginnings could produce a legend. But as history would later show, the ghosts of his past were not so easily silenced, and what came next would challenge every triumph he had ever earned. As Mike Tyson's career soared into the stratosphere, the world couldn't get enough of his brutal knockouts and intimidating persona, but behind the gloves was a volatile storm waiting to explode. He wasn't just winning, he was annihilating opponents with a ferocity rarely seen in sports, dispatching fighters like Larry Holmes, Pinklon Thomas, and Michael Spinks in rounds that barely lasted minutes. His aura of invincibility reached mythic proportions, and his paychecks followed suit, raking in tens of millions per fight as networks like HBO and Showtime scrambled to broadcast the spectacle. But Tyson's fame came with a dark twist, one that the public couldn't ignore. In 1992, he was convicted of assault and sentenced to 6 years in prison, a moment that shattered his image and made headlines around the world. And just 5 years later, in a shocking and surreal scene during his 1997 rematch with Evander Holyfield, Tyson was disqualified for biting off a piece of Holyfield's ear mid-fight, an act that forever became symbolic of his unhinged behavior. The fall from grace was brutal and very public. Sponsorships collapsed, critics pounced, and the media rebranded the champion as a cautionary figure. Yet despite all the chaos, Tyson continued to draw crowds, proving that fascination with him extended far beyond sports. Even in disgrace, he was magnetic, unpredictable, and profitable. His life became the ultimate contradiction, a man worshipped for his power, yet demonized for his unpredictability. He wasn't just a boxer, he was a living headline, the walking embodiment of triumph poisoned by trauma. But while scandal nearly swallowed his legacy, Tyson was nowhere near finished rewriting the ending. If anything, his next act would be more outrageous and more expensive than anything he'd done in the ring. And for most celebrities, owning a few luxury vehicles is a mark of success. But for Mike Tyson, cars were an obsession bordering on compulsion, a never-ending quest to surround himself with horsepower, style, and status symbols that screamed wealth louder than any championship belt ever could. During his peak, Tyson amassed a jaw-dropping collection of over 100 vehicles, ranging from elegant classics to high-powered supercars, many of which were bought on impulse, and some even gifted to friends like party favors. His garage housed everything from a Mercedes-Benz 380 SL to multiple Rolls-Royces, a Bentley Continental SC worth over $300,000, and an ultra-rare Jaguar XJ220 valued at $600,000. He also flexed with a Ferrari F50, a supercar capable of hitting 202 mph and now worth over $1 million. Not to mention a Lamborghini Super Diablo twin turbo and a Rolls-Royce Cullinan with a $350,000 price tag. Each car was more than just a ride. It was a rolling declaration of Tyson's extravagance, his need to outshine not just rivals in the ring, but peers in the celebrity world. The collection wasn't just massive, it was extreme, eclectic, and explosive, much like the man himself. His taste ranged from refined European classics to muscular American beasts, all of which mirrored the duality of his persona: violent, fast, unapologetic. But while his garage grew, so did the tab. It's with maintenance, insurance, and depreciation burning holes in his net worth. Still, the fleet became legend, often overshadowing his boxing accomplishments in the press. Mike Tyson wasn't just a fighter with a few cool cars. He was the guy who made owning a dozen Bentleys seem ordinary. But as extravagant as his car addiction was, it was just a small slice of the empire he built, and the fortune he would soon lose. Long before it became a viral symbol of excess and decay, Mike Tyson's infamous Southington mansion in Ohio was the crown jewel of his early wealth, a sprawling estate designed to reflect not just his riches, but his larger-than-life persona. Purchased in the 1980s during the height of his dominance, the mansion was filled with marble, gold-plated fixtures, custom bathtubs, and hot tubs framed in glass and opulence. Each room was crafted for indulgence, with dazzling bathrooms boasting black marble and golden decor, rooms designed for all-night parties, and heated pools that resembled tropical resorts. It wasn't just a home, it was a palace built for a king of chaos. But as Tyson's empire began to crumble under legal trouble, addiction, and financial mismanagement, the mansion was left to rot, standing as a tragic metaphor for everything he had gained and lost. In its abandoned state, it became a viral sensation, with urban explorers and documentary filmmakers walking through the eerie halls once filled with celebrities, friends, and lavish parties. In 2014, the property was sold to a church for just over $1.1 million, a fraction of what it once represented. Today, it has been renovated into a religious shrine, with the same sheds and pools once used for wild celebrations now hosting sermons and baptisms. The transformation is haunting, a house of sin reborn as a sanctuary, a visual timeline of Tyson's descent and the eerie calm that followed. The mansion may no longer belong to the boxer, but it remains an iconic relic of his fall, a crumbling echo of a time when money, fame, and indulgence drowned out the warning signs he refused to hear. Among the many luxurious properties Tyson called home, none stirred public fascination quite like the Bethesda, Maryland mansion he shared with his then-wife Monica Turner, a 19,000 square foot marvel situated on 2.5 acres of pristine land in a gated community reserved for the elite. The estate was a sanctuary of sophistication, filled with light-toned decor, floor-to-ceiling windows, a fireplace-warmed living room, a chandelier-lit dining space, a rustic wood-paneled office, a fully equipped gym, and a piano room where Tyson reportedly unwound to his favorite songs. But what made this mansion truly unforgettable was a surreal, now legendary moment, a video of Tyson casually walking one of his pet tigers across the backyard, turning a luxury property into something resembling a scene from a Hollywood movie, the master suite alone featured a walk-in closet the size of most apartments and a bathroom centered around a gleaming hot tub built for royalty. Outside, a full basketball court and lavish pool completed the playground. But this dreamscape was short-lived. Following their divorce in 2003, the home was reportedly given to Turner as part of the settlement and later sold in 2021 for a staggering $4.6 million. The tiger may be gone, the couple separated, but that image, Mike Tyson in silk robes, walking a predator like a pet, became part of his mythos. It wasn't just a house, it was a window into a life of wealth so outrageous, so untamed, that even reality seemed fictional. Yet, even this grand estate was only one chapter in a saga of excess, and the next property Tyson acquired would only escalate his taste for the extravagant. After years of turbulence and financial collapse, Tyson re-emerged in Henderson, Nevada in a gated community known as Seven Hills, where he initially purchased a sleek, contemporary mansion with an infinity pool, waterfall, and 6 bedrooms, spanning over 5,700 square feet, but even that wasn't enough. True to form, Tyson sold it and upgraded to a sprawling 8,150 square foot 2-story mega mansion, a symbol of his personal rebirth and newfound stability. The current residence boasts a zen-like exterior filled with greenery, a pool flanked by artistic landscaping, and a multi-level water fountain that reflects light like a mirror. Inside, the home is calm, minimalistic, and yet unmistakably Tyson, filled with reminders of both his past and his passions. One of the most talked about features is his aviary, a massive collection of exotic birds that Tyson tends to personally, a softer obsession that contrasts the animalistic persona the world once feared. It's in this home where Tyson has hosted business meetings, filmed podcast episodes, and quietly rebuilt a financial base that once seemed lost forever. The property, estimated at $2.5 million, is not just a home, it's his sanctuary, a space designed not for chaos, but for control. Unlike the gold-plated chaos of his Ohio mansion or the tiger-trodden Maryland estate, the Seven Hills residence reflects a more measured version of the man once called the baddest on the planet. But beneath the calm architecture and peaceful garden lies the same hunger, the same fire, now directed not at opponents in the ring, but at business deals, branding, and an empire built from ashes. If there's one thing Mike Tyson did better than knocking people out, it was spending money at a pace that stunned even the most seasoned financial advisors. And his lavish purchases weren't just about status. They were about making statements so loud the world couldn't ignore them. At the height of his fame, Tyson wasn't content with sports cars or jewelry. He wanted symbols of power, wealth, and chaos. That's why he famously bought not one, but 3 Bengal tigers for an estimated $70,000 each, with annual upkeep costs around $125,000. A flex so outrageous it made global headlines and later became a meme-worthy pop culture moment. His obsession with luxury timepieces was equally unhinged, flaunting a $5,000 Rolex Oyster Perpetual, a $12,000 Cartier Pasha, an $18,000 Rolex Day Date, and a $33,000 Hublot Big Bang, with his most opulent piece, a diamond-covered bracelet and watch combo, and reportedly worth $630,000. But Tyson didn't just wear his wealth, he threw it around. For his 30th birthday, he hosted a legendary bash attended by over 700 guests and numerous A-list celebrities, an event that reportedly cost $400,000, not counting the luxury vehicles he gave away to close friends as if they were party favors. Whether he was handing out Bentleys or buying extravagant gifts for random acquaintances, Tyson's generosity blurred into madness. His life wasn't just rich, it was cinematic, surreal, and unsustainable. Tyson didn't live like a king. He lived like a myth, an urban legend with a wallet, but beneath the flash was a truth he couldn't dodge. The money, no matter how infinite it seemed, was running out, and fast. As the parties faded and bills piled up, Tyson was forced to confront the monster he'd created, and what came next would shake the sports world to its core. In a moment that stunned fans and financial experts alike, Mike Tyson, once the highest paid athlete in the world, filed for bankruptcy in 2003, revealing he was a staggering $23 million in debt, a fall from grace that exposed just how devastating his unchecked spending and mismanagement had become. Despite having earned an estimated $430 million during his career, the equivalent of over $700 million today. Tyson found himself broke, drowning in lawsuits, surrounded by leeches, and betrayed by the very empire he had built. Much of the blame fell on the parasitic influence of former promoter Don King, who allegedly pocketed massive chunks of Tyson's income, combined with Tyson's own impulsive purchases and lack of financial literacy. But what should have been the end of his story became an unlikely rebirth. Tyson reemerged not with a comeback in the ring, but with a bold entrepreneurial pivot into the cannabis industry, launching Tyson 2.0, a rapidly growing company selling marijuana products, merch, and edibles across multiple states. The brand leveraged his outlaw image, rebranding it as authenticity, and the gamble paid off. With over 100,000 followers on Instagram and partnerships across the cannabis market, Tyson quickly became an unlikely mogul. He also tapped into the power of content, building a YouTube channel with 2 million subscribers, producing viral clips, podcasts, and branded merchandise. Appearances in Hollywood films, paid public events, and exhibition fights further padded his income, allowing him to rebuild a new version of himself. Not just the fighter, but the businessman, the entertainer, the survivor. Tyson didn't just recover, he evolved. And in a twist no one saw coming, he turned the very chaos that broke him into the fuel for his greatest financial resurrection. But as impressive as this rebound was, the question still remains: just how much of that legendary fortune is left? After decades of dizzying highs, catastrophic lows, and a comeback so unlikely it could pass for fiction, Mike Tyson's current net worth is estimated to hover around $20 million, a modest figure by his past standards, but a monumental achievement considering the depths he once sank to. He may no longer be the $100 million pay-per-view titan who crushed opponents in seconds, but he's no longer the reckless spender with tigers in his backyard and luxury cars lining the driveway. Either. What Tyson has now is something far rarer than belts or money: control. With his cannabis empire thriving, digital media presence expanding, and brand partnerships rolling in, Tyson has restructured his life with a level of maturity many thought he'd never reach. Still, the specter of what could have been looms large. Had he managed his wealth with even a fraction of the discipline he once showed in training, Tyson could easily have been a billionaire icon, rivaling names like Jordan or Mayweather. Instead, he stands today as both a triumphant comeback story and a sobering cautionary tale, reminding millions that fame and fortune without guidance are recipes for disaster. Yet there's something poetic about his journey: the gladiator who fought the world, lost it all, and returned not with vengeance, but with humility and business savvy. He may have once been the baddest man on the planet, but in 2025, Mike Tyson is something far more interesting. A man at peace with his past, thriving in his present, and carving a legacy not just in punches, but in persistence. Whether you see him as a hero, a villain, or a mix of both, one truth remains: Mike Tyson's story isn't just unforgettable, it's still being written.